We are now joined by one of the guys, boots on the ground, who is there and is letting us know exactly what's going on in the world of Cleveland sports. From 92.3 The Fan, host and anchor Alex Hooper. Alex, we just played a soundbite of LeBron James saying it's Cleveland versus the world. Is that the mentality that's finally brought Cleveland back into the world of sports?
I think in ways, yes. The fans have really rallied behind that saying. There's plenty of Cleveland versus the world shirts going around. I don't know if it means as much to the players, but I know the energy from the fans, especially during last year's run for the Cavs and this year's run with the Indians, people kind of took on that mindset. They might go a little overboard. Might be plenty of people here saying that everyone's biased against Cleveland. The complaint today is that everyone was talking about the Warriors losing instead of the fact that the Indians won. I don't really see the connection there, so it's a little overboard, but yeah, absolutely.
Here in New York, we watched the Knicks play last night, and we're already a little heartbroken. Even though it's game one, we would have hoped for a better effort. But is this Cavalier team this season actually better than last year's championship season team?
That's hard to say. Some of the pieces that they lost, Mozgov, that was, I don't want to call it a big piece, but a big enough piece, at least stature-wise. Matthew Dellavedova, losing that defensive presence will kind of hurt him a little bit. But, this is the first season, really, that Kevin Love has had a whole off-season to get his body in shape to do the kinds of things that he needed to do. He came into the system with David Blatt originally, when the Big Three was formed, underweight. He cut a ton of weight from Minnesota because he thought he was going to be a stretch four. And then he came in and found out that he wasn't as much going to need that kind of stealthy, kind of feathery movement on the court. So then he had to add weight, but then with the shoulder injury suffered the first year, he couldn't get in the weight room. This is the first summer he's been able to get his body to where it needs to be. Also, the thing with Kyrie right now is how many minutes he put in between the finals and the Olympics. So I don't know if I want to call him better, but it's different. It's fluid. Also, though, I think Ty Lue is a big piece of this whole mess. He gets his first training camp as a head coach. He gets to put in the things that really got them to where they were last year, and he gets a whole summer to work on those and build on those. So better, we'll see. But there's plenty of storylines again here in Cleveland.
Alex Hooper from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. So, Alex, it's funny you bring up Kevin Love. I'm watching the ceremony last night, and everybody's got their special handshake, and they're going through the line, and everybody's happy, everybody's buddies. Am I crazy thinking, I'm watching Kevin Love and the other two members of the Big Three, and I'm like, you guys are just one losing streak away from hating each other again?
I don't want to get into that belief. I don't want to start believing that myself. Maybe, though, these guys, you never know with the big egos, kind of how things are going to affect them, how negativity is going to affect them. But in all honesty, being around them, they're really a team. They really do love each other. They are all on board with each other. I don't think the egos get too much in the way of this team, and I think LeBron has a lot to do with that, obviously. But maybe the body language isn't always there, but I'll tell you one guy who made this whole situation 10 times better for Kevin Love was Richard Jefferson. And the same when Channing Frye was traded over here, it kind of added on. But when RJ came to the Cavs, he got Love involved in everything. He just kind of said, you're a West Coast guy. I'm coming over to your house. And he just kind of started hanging out with Love because he didn't have any kids, and they would get together. And then the whole Lil Kev thing that took off, that really built, I think, Love's presence within the team, off the court. And I think guys now want to see him succeed as bad as they want the team to succeed, and they know that those two things are, kind of tied in with each other. So I would hope that one little thing isn't going to spoil it. There's obviously going to be some ups and downs, especially with the way you're going to have to rest Kyrie and the way LeBron rests plenty, and of course you'll probably get an injury here or there. But I think these guys really do like each other, and I think that's how they came together and won that thing last year.
That's a great point, Alex, especially if you follow Richard Jefferson on Snapchat like I do. It's him and DJ Khaled, who I cannot get enough of on Snapchat. Those guys are absolutely hysterical. We're going to shift from the Cavs to the Indians now. Indians pick up that Game 1 victory in the World Series last night. Has this Indians team just been overlooked all season long, or are they just catching fire here in the postseason?
It's possible that they were overlooked, because they were a great team all year. If you look at it, the schedule and the results, they were the only team in baseball not to lose 4 straight. So obviously there's some talent there. There's some consistency there. There's some great approach there. But, I mean, look at the names in that lineup. Mike Napoli is probably the biggest name in that lineup, and he's a guy who is kind of considered to be past his prime. Jose Ramirez has been doing most of the heavy lifting for this team in RBI situations all year. Who's Jose Ramirez, especially like to the national view of things? Francisco Lindor, he's not a rookie, a second-year player who not a lot of people have heard about. That kind of happens in baseball where those guys fly under the radar and all of a sudden they become the team's best guy. And then you're like, oh, you got to watch this guy. And then obviously the pitching, no one really knows about Trevor Bauer. No one really knows about Carlos Carrasco because those are guys who kind of toiled for the last couple of years when they were in Cleveland trying to get their stuff right. And once they did, it kind of all happened this year. So these are guys coming out of nowhere. And speaking of coming out of nowhere, I mean, Roberto Perez is a guy who missed half the season. He was the backup catcher coming in. That catching spot was abysmal all year. Pretty much all 3 guys that were playing that position full time between injuries and everything were hitting under 150 collectively and probably all individually for a long stretch of time. So overlooked, I guess, but there are so many reasons to overlook this team. I don't want to take away from them, but they're not your in-your-face, big, bopping, home run hitting team that you see and that draws a lot of national attention. These are just guys who go out there and they grind, good defense and pitching, and then average hitting in, situations. That's just kind of what has gotten them there. I don't think anyone here really thought they would get to the World Series by that way of doing things, but they just have done it so well for so long, so consistently, that I guess you can say they're getting hot right now, but this is kind of what they've done all year at the same time. It's just they're doing it all in every game instead of, every 2 games, every 3 games.
So you would say that the confidence in the city of Cleveland right now is still high despite them going up against the favorite 100-plus win team in Chicago?
Yeah, people, the paradigm here has shifted so much since the Cavs won. It's hard to explain. I had a conversation with a couple of the guys in studio yesterday where I was like, I'm kind of annoyed by how cocky everyone is getting all of a sudden. This Cubs team, you look at the lineup, you're like, holy cow, there's no way. I felt like Kluber was going to go out and win at least one of those games in the ways that he did last night. But I sometimes I feel like I'm the only guy who is here in Cleveland is like, hold your horses, pump the brakes. Because the confidence is high. I think people are just like, we waited this long, now we're here again. I see no reason as to why we won't do it again. But there is plenty of series left, and at least representing Cleveland, I will say I'm sitting on the fence a little bit. I'm not ready to jump over and start grabbing rings.
Alex Hooper from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. Let's shift that paradigm back a little bit. What can the Jets expect from the Browns this weekend?
Holes up the middle, holes in the secondary. I don't know what quarterback is going to play. Kevin Hogan is currently listed as first on the depth chart. Cody Kessler's in the concussion protocol. Josh McCown's still recovering from that broken collarbone. They got a guy named Joe Callahan, who they just picked up on waivers. He's the current backup. So it's hard for me to even tell you what I can expect from the Browns this week. It's just, Joe Hayden's been beat up in the last couple of weeks. He's obviously the cornerstone of that defense, and then the rest of the guys are really just kind of young. That offensive line has been patchwork, and other than Joe Thomas, it's been horrendous. Terrell Pryor's really been the only bright spot for this team at wide receiver, but you don't know who's going to get him the ball on a weekly basis. Isaiah Crowell has also been all right coming out of the backfield, kind of streaky, but he's a talent for sure. The one thing is the young defensive ends, Carl Nassib and Emmanuel Ogbah, they can really start to wreak havoc if they get going. But, you know, it's hitting the midpoint of the season. This is kind of when those rookies start to slow down, and they haven't been exceptional as of late. But when you look at a team with so few bright spots, I guess those are the guys who stick out.
Alex Hooper, 92.3 The Fan. We appreciate you making some time for us today and talking Cleveland with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Alex. Alex, he's got to get out of here. He's got to go stretch. He might be the quarterback this weekend for the Browns. We got your headlines coming back in just a few minutes next.